This is easily the biggest vacuum I've ever reviewed. And the reason we have such a large box today is because it has a large charging and cleaning base with two 4-liter water tanks, one for filling up the mop pads with clean water and the other to hold the dirty water once it's done its cleaning cycle. And that offers users two main advantages. It can actually do those cycles of cleaning your rooms on an automated schedule more frequently before you have to manually add more water to its water tank, that 4-liter water tank. But even cooler, between those cleaning cycles, you don't have to manually clean the mop pads, rinse them out, dry them, because after every cycle, it's going to do that in its base on its own, which is really cool. Dreametech W10 is a robot vacuum that not only mops, but it can actually fill up its water tank, as well as washing out, sanitizing, and drying out its mop pads when it's done cleaning. This is the third robot vacuum that I've owned and used by Dreametech. In my time reviewing robot vacuums, I've noticed a couple things. They all perform relatively well as far as cleaning. Where they usually differ though is with their battery life, their smart and unique features, as well as their ability to navigate and overcome certain obstacles, whether that's thresholds or transitioning between other surfaces. Now, when I first got this, something that I was a little bit concerned was, how difficult is this going to be to set up? Being that this has a new base that's kind of unusual and we haven't seen before, how much additional setup will this require? In my experience, it was pretty much plug and play, very similar to the other robot vacuums that I've reviewed in the past. Included in your box, you have the two mopping pads, you have the one cleaning brush / comb, the side brush, and your power cord. This has a very large battery of 6,400 milliamps, and it also charges really quickly. And if you're actually standing in front of its base, you can actually notice it's charging, increasing in front of you. And for people who have larger homes, again, that means it's going to be able to clean a larger portion of your house without needing to return to the dock, charge, and then go back out. With many competing robot vacuums topping out at 2,000 PA, in terms of suction strength, this is at 4,000 PA, which definitely puts it at that higher tier. The overall build quality feels really great. It feels like it's built like a tank. I accidentally dropped it once on my carpeted floors. Nothing happened to it. And the all-white base is very sleek looking. It looks very modern. And even if you have to place it in a bit of an awkward spot in your room, it's not really much of an eyesore in my opinion. When you open the top lid for the base, that's where you'll find another one of those quick startup guides. And underneath that, that's where you'll find the two water tanks, one for the clean water and one for the dirty water. In terms of overall size, it's about half that of an average kitchen waste bin. And although the base is large, it can also be placed under most desks and tables without issue. Something I was a little bit surprised about was just how heavy this whole system was. You're not going to really want to move this around between different rooms or locations, and definitely not floors, especially after you fill up those water bins. If you have white walls, this is going to make it a lot easier for this to blend in with your background if you don't really want to see it. The color LED screen at the top has three main functions. It allows you to see what the current status of your vacuum is, whether that's charging or cleaning. And you also have the ability to start your cleaning cycle from there, as well as have the vacuum return to home without actually needing to find the vacuum and press the home button on it directly. And with that, there is something that you need to consider when placing its location. If you have a bunch of mixed surfaces like I do, carpet, hardwood, and tile, and if you want to put this on an automated schedule of just cleaning your hard floors without you needing to do anything before it starts those cleaning cycles, you're actually going to want to put this base on one of those hard surfaces. And the reason for that is, if you have the mop pads installed at the bottom, it's going to either be in one of two modes, sweeping / mopping, or just strictly mopping. And because of that, it can't do any carpeted floors, which also means that the base itself can't be on carpeted floors, and it can't start the cleaning cycle on a carpeted surface. And so on my main floor here, where I have my office, a hallway, and my bathroom, which has 3 different floor surfaces, tile in the bathroom, carpet in the office, and hardwood floors in the hallway, I was hoping that this vacuum could kind of take care of all that, sweeping and mopping at the same time without me needing to do anything on my end. But again, with those mop pads, that's not possible. So you need to strategically decide where you want to place this. And if you're primarily using this for the function of, again, mopping automatically, you're really going to be limited to surfaces that have hardwood floors or tile, so it can actually do those mops and not damage your carpets, which makes sense. After you decide where you want to place the base and keeping those things in mind, the rest of the setup process is actually very straightforward because you have all these really nicely illustrated diagrams and instructions which tell you exactly how to set up each part. After you peel off the plastic for the vacuum, all you have to do is remove the 2 protective side pieces which allow the bumpers to move freely, as well as installing the side brush. You, however, don't want to have the 2 mop pads installed at the bottom because with its first run, all it's doing is mapping and it's not doing any cleaning. You'll notice that it actually has a very unique shape compared to the typical circle shapes that we've seen on previous models. This one, on the other hand, has a unique D shape, which allows it to get up and close to corners much more easily. On the vacuum itself, you have the 3 main buttons that you see on all their other models, which are spot cleaning, the power button, and return to home. The orange LiDAR at the top is what makes this vacuum so smart. It allows it to detect objects and not bump into them as much, as well as helps it navigate and map your rooms. In addition to that, you have a bunch of sensors all around the vacuum, which again help it navigate around your rooms. And then you also have ultrasonic sensors at the bottom of the vacuum, which help it detect what kind of surface it's on, whether that's hard floors or carpet. In addition to that, it also prevents it from falling off the corners of surfaces. The wheel system is very similar to the previous Dreambot that I had, which actually allows it to overcome surfaces of 18 millimeters, which is 0.71 inches. That's especially helpful again with thresholds and switching between different surfaces, whereas some vacuums that I've had in the past would typically get stuck. But although the vacuum again can travel over a lot of surfaces really easily, something that I do notice, for example, carpets on hardwood floors, that inch or 2 inches where the vacuum isn't making direct contact with that floor, it isn't going to be able to clean up that area very well because the vacuum isn't making tight contact. Continuing with the setup process, pairing it with your smartphone app is also very easy. You can either connect using the QR code that's in your manual or the QR code that's found on the vacuum itself near the waste bin. And once you continue through the app setup and you're prompted to do the initial scan of your floor, that's where it's going to map everything out. It's going to identify different rooms and zones that it thinks makes sense, which from there allows you to easily set up different cleaning zones or section off areas that you don't want the vacuum to go to. You can set it to quiet, standard, strong, or turbo. And obviously with that, if you set it to strong or turbo, the battery is going to deplete a lot faster. So if you have a larger home or floor that needs to be cleaned, more than likely it's going to need to return back to its base, charge up a little bit before it continues with that cleaning process. And afterwards, you can actually set up different maps. So if you want to use this vacuum on different floors and manually move it downstairs to different floors to clean, you actually have the ability to map those different areas. So you can tell it, okay, now use map 2, so it doesn't have to remap each process, and it's going to be a little bit quicker that way. Now, in reality, from my experience, it's not as convenient to do that, especially when you want these vacuums to run on automated schedules again. And while it might seem easy to just carry your vacuum from the base of one floor and bring it downstairs, switch the map, and have it clean, it doesn't offer you that automation that you do with, again, just setting it to a cleaning schedule and having it run automatically without even needing to think about it.
Mop pads installed.
The mop pads snap into place really easily without any kind of twist or locking mechanism required. It's just a magnetic attachment, so that's really easy to use. Speaking of where the mops go at the bottom, you'll notice that they're actually towards the back of the vacuum, whereas the brushes that clean and sweep are at the front. And with that design, as the vacuum is moving forward and the mop pads are at the back, it is making sure that it is cleaning and not leaving any kind of trail with the front of the vacuum. On the other hand, if the mop pads were at the front and the vacuum is moving forward and then you had your wheels and your brushes at the back, that could potentially be trailing and leaving smudges and streaks, so you don't want that. Other vacuums do have that design, so this is actually an improvement that the Dreambot offers. And with the mop pads itself, you also have the ability to change different settings for its wetness, including slightly dry, moist, or wet. These mop pads actually spin around when the vacuum is on and cleaning with them, as opposed to being dragged behind it, which should allow it to clean your floors a little bit better. In terms of the cleaning performance of the mop, it does a good job with lighter stains and things that haven't actually solidified or become sticky on the floors yet. But with trickier things that have solidified and become sticky on the floors themselves, the mop pads, even on their strongest wetness, will not be able to clean that up. And you'll still have to probably use a little bit of elbow grease to clean that up yourself. And let's say you have a really dirty floor that it just finished mopping out. Chances are you don't want to wring out the mop pads yourself, especially with this being a whole automated experience. Again, that's where this really sophisticated base helps out. And so once it's done with the cleaning cycle and your mop pads are all dirty, it'll actually clean it automatically, flush out that water, and put it into the dirty bin for you to then empty out later after it's full. When it's doing so, it's actually kind of funny because it sounds like a Keurig machine is going, like it makes that same gurgling sound. And as it's actually cleaning and drying the mop pads themselves, it sounds like a little jet is about to take off. It has a 104-degree Fahrenheit dryer, and that's what's making the loud noises during the cleaning process. It's nothing too obnoxious, but if you're someone who really likes to have a quiet place, either have this set to run at a time that you're not in the room or put it in a quieter area like my bathroom. The whole cleaning process of the vacuum mops itself means that you're going to have a clean set of mops each time the cycle begins, as well as you're not having this dirty, grimy mop pad sitting in your base, either building up bacteria or smells, and so the base will completely eliminate that. And so while it's smart enough to detect the different surfaces, so it knows not to mop carpets or rugs, for smaller surfaces like my bath mat, it has the ability to still sweep them without getting the mop pads on them, so that helps a lot. On the other hand, if you have a floor layout like mine, which has tile separated by carpet, before you can get to the hardwood floors, it'll unfortunately dramatically reduce the effectiveness and whole automation of the system, because you'll either have to manually remove the mop pads when you want it to go to the carpeted floors and then put the mop pads back on when you want it to mop those special areas. And so it won't be able to both vacuum and mop those different surfaces in one go. And so my suggestion would be to use this mainly for an area with mostly hardwood floors and tile and not very much carpet, because if you want to get the most use out of this, you want it on floors with mostly those surfaces. And if there's any errors, you'll be notified within the app itself. And if you have it tied to your smartwatch, you'll also receive any of those notifications on your watch too. So for example, I am in an office which always has things on the floor, whether that's cables, bags, and other things that can get tangled very easily. Anytime something like that happens, I'll get a notification. And so instead of coming back to the room expecting the cleaning cycle to be done, and instead finding the vacuum tied up in something halfway through the cleaning cycle, I can actually address that much sooner, fix the tangle, clean up the area that I forgot to, and have the vacuum resume its cleaning. And talking about things getting tangled in the vacuum, just like any other robot vacuum, it inevitably, if you leave things on the floor, will get into some trouble that you'll need to fix on your own. And just like with any other vacuum that I've used, I need to be mindful of the things that I leave on the floor and minimize the amount of things that it can get into and get caught on. That said, something that was a little bit surprising to me, I have this shag rug here beneath my couch where I'm sitting right now. Unlike some other competing vacuums that I have tested out on this very rug, I think because this is trying to do such a thorough job of going back and forth and perhaps the way its brushes are spinning, it is more likely to get caught, especially around corners, again, where it's trying to be very precise and move around and try to get all the edges really well. With the shag rug being longer and more dense, it's very easy for that brush to actually get tangled in there. And so unfortunately, this would be a good example of an area that I would want to set a no vacuum zone for. Not unique to this vacuum, but I noticed, at least with my bathroom setup, the way the toilet is in the center of its room, the vacuum is almost like 1/4 of an inch too thick to get on either side of the toilet. And so those kind of tighter areas require you to clean them yourself. Similar to that, because the lighter does stick up with surfaces that have lower clearance areas, the vacuum might not be able to get underneath them. I had a few examples of those with some of my pieces of furniture where it wouldn't be able to get underneath. So what the vacuum would do, which actually was pretty good, was it would get underneath as far as it could, and then travel around to all the other corners and edges that it would still be able to go underneath before running into the height issue of the lighter being in its way. And so this is a really useful all-in-one vacuum system that self-cleans. Keep in mind some of those limitations I was telling you about as far as where you need to place your base, as well as manually needing to insert and remove the mop pads if you wanted to then go to a carpeted area. And again, because of those limitations, I think this is going to be a vacuum best for non-carpeted floors because of those slight inconveniences of, again, having to manually switch them out, which reduce the amount of automation that you can do with this on its own. So thanks for checking out this video. If you have any questions about the system, let us know in the comments down below. Until the next one, we'll catch you later.